What does Foxtel's Hubbl mean for Australia's streaming landscape?
And what's hot from Apple's scary fast Mac launch? Hey there. Welcome back to Vertical Hold Behind the Tech News, the award winning tech podcast where we catch up with Australia's leading technology journalists and commentators to dive into the big tech stories of the week. I'm Adam Turner, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Alex Kidman. Now, Alex, I hear that Twitter has more than halved in value since Elon Musk took over, dropping from 44 billion to a mere 19 billion. What other brilliant investment ideas do you have for our good friend Elon?
Look, the pedantic side of my brain wants to point out that 19 billion ain't half of 44 billion, but I'll have the spare 5 billion you're missing there if anyone's investing. But for Elon, obviously, I mean, he should be looking into beanie babies, tulips, maybe Ice TV,
Yeah, there's a bridge we could sell him.
perhaps.
So, speaking of smart investments, we're also joined by a longtime friend of the show. It's Steve Malk from TV Black Box. Steve, welcome back to the pod.
Thank you. I am a smart investment.
So, could you help Elon piss away another $20 billion?
Oh, mate. Well, first of all, I want to own every piece of Lego in the world, and I don't think anyone else should. So I think I would encourage him to start collecting.
That 20
You
billion
know, if
might
he
not be
buys
enough.
Lego, Steve, though, if he buys Lego, he's going to buy the whole company
Yeah,
and Twitterize it.
and
It's going to
probably
be
burn it to the ground, which would
anti-woke
be horrible.
Lego
Yeah.
with no blue pieces or something.
Look, I think that the real investment that I would want Elon Musk to buy into would be the British government.
I hear they're pretty cheap to buy. Just ask Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, he get right involved in there, deep in someone's things.
So, Steve's here this week because Foxtel's taking yet another stab at the streaming market. But earlier, Alex and I had a chat about the latest bumper crop of new Apple Macs. So, Alex, Apple has turned around with their scary fast event. And is anybody surprised with what they delivered?
Uh, well, how do I put this? I'm a journalist with long experience, and I should be able to frame some very pretty words around it. No, not at all. This was very much exactly what everyone expected, and basically nothing more. There was no one more thing. There weren't iPads. There weren't new colored iPhones or um, USB AirPods Max or any of the other things that the rumor mill says are coming down the wire.
The alleged Apple
This was
television.
the less said about that, the better. Apple does not comment on rumor and speculation and all those old hoary cliches. But no, this was all about the M3 chip, the latest generation of Apple silicon, built on a 3 nanometer process and said to be, by Apple, considerably faster, although as always, the devil's in the detail because an awful lot of the considerably faster that they were most keen to push was that it was considerably faster than either M1, that's first generation Apple Silicon, or Intel Max.
Which is not much of a comparison.
Well, actually, no, I think it is. I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it says a lot about where Apple sees its market, actually, without outright stating it, because there's no reason. I mean, legitimately, serious consumer advice here. If you've got an M2 Mac of any stripe sitting on your desk or in your work bag or however you're using a Mac, there is not a huge reason to update to an M3. It is faster, it is a little bit better, but that year-on-year upgrade cycle for a computer is insane. I mean, seriously, just dumb. Outside of some very, very specific use cases we might get into for the very high-end stuff. But for the people who might still be sitting on slightly older Intel Macs, that bounce up is high.
Yeah.
What I find interesting with that, though, is that's not a growth market strategy. That's not them saying, hey, everyone, come look at these fastest laptops you can get across anything, because they used to compare a lot against Windows, if you recall. It's, hey, people who've already got Macs, we'd like to keep you as customers, please.
So it doesn't feel to me like it was that long since we saw the M2. And I looked it up. The gap between the M1 and the M2 was about 2 years. Now it's come down to about 18 months. Do they need to be churning them out this quickly?
Well, Apple likes making money, Adam. I
Yes,
think that's
true.
part of
I get it. I get it.
and they and I suppose, look, if you've invested this much in silicon, and there are some very interesting bits if you're into the technical governance of all of this around this, around these processes. They're not just processes, and this is the important thing about Apple Silicon that I think people absolutely should realize across the board is these are systems which are set in, well, they're not stone, they're sand, but they're set in stone in the sense that if you get one of these, it's got whatever RAM it's got whatever storage it's got, and that's all it's ever going to have because it's all on the same piece of silicon. It's part of the reason it's so efficient. They're certainly not the only people to do that kind of system on a chip thing uh, by far, but they're one of the biggest pushers of it. And as such, when you can get that kind of efficiency gain, I kind of see why you go to market with it, especially because, well, or more, I should say, more because of the pro nature of these first laptops. We'll get onto the iMac in a bit, because some of those higher end pro laptops are serious machines. I mean, we're talking up to 128 gig of memory, which you really don't need. I mean, I want it, but you really don't need it unless you're doing incredibly high end research or modeling or animation or these things that need high end rendering. And that's sort of the market they're pitching to. And for those markets, perhaps actually that 1 year update cycle makes perfect sense, because if you can get those machines running 20% faster, that could save you several $1 million. And then suddenly spending, I actually calculated it out, the highest end MacBook Pro 16 with an M3 Max and all the gubbins that you can add to
All
it
the trimmings.
is shade over $12,000.
So, assuming you're shopping down at the mere mortal end of the market, we lost the Pro, didn't we?
We did. So Apple took the 13-inch MacBook Pro out to the back of the shed and capped it in the back of the head. And I will not miss it because that thing had the touch bar, and that was an abomination. I have strong opinions. It's gone. There's just the 13-inch Air. But honestly, I mean, even if you sort of liked the touch bar, in which case you're wrong. But even then, it never made a lot of sense because they always had the Air in the same bracket with the same processors, same systems. You got so little extra out of buying this thing that was the 13-inch MacBook Pro. But they've also done some very weird things with the pricing this time around as well, because on paper it looks like it's a lot cheaper. We've gone from the entry level 14-inch MacBook Pro being a shade over $3,000 to being 2.7, but it's even aside from the processor difference, it's not quite the same thing because of the way they're handling the storage on those devices. If you bring the storage up to a comparable level, it's still cheaper, which is not bad, but it's only like $100 to $200 cheaper. And obviously, depending on how you configure it, you can spend an awful lot on these machines.
And if you want to spend less, then you're down in the Air territory.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the gulf down to where the MacBook Air, which actually is, I mean, it's a very capable everyday machine. It's certainly still their mass consumer model, excluding, of course, the other new thing we got, which is the new iMac, and that was a machine that had a long period between updates because there was no M2 iMac. They did an M1 version, just in 24-inch, no 27-inch. Sorry for big iMac fans. And that's made the jump up to M3 as well, which is kind of weird to me, I think.
What about the Air range? The Airs went to the M1. Is there an M2 or an M3 Air?
There's an M2. I'm talking to you through an M2 Air right now, and it's a very nice, capable machine. But they have not yet announced M3
M3.
Airs, and I can totally see why, because you announce the fastest and best things and charge the premium for it. I expect 6 months down the track,
It'll
we'll
trickle
get an
down.
M3 Air for the rest of us, because they don't want to cannibalize those sales for people who might go, well, we'll wait and see what the M3 is like. Oh, wait, the M3 Air does enough. Cool, we won't spend quite as much with Apple because the production process is going to be much the same. And I suppose it is worth pointing out, while we did get a new-ish color, what we are talking about here are the same old shells. We are talking about the same iMacs, the same MacBook Pro form factors and sizes, 14-inch and 16-inch only for the MacBook Pro and 24-inch for the iMac.
And is the touch bar dead now? Was that the last version of it? floating around.
The 13-inch, yep. The 13-inch was
Yeah.
the sole weird remaining touch bar model. Apple does this from time to time. They have like one vestigial product that still has the
The
old
old thing.
interface or the old thing on it
Yeah.
for a little while, and they never announce, "Oh yeah, we're killing it." They just go, "What? We never had one of
Yeah.
those."
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. So there's a range of new colors, and that always, whenever anybody talks about the color of a device, I start to tuning out because I'm a techno bogan. I don't care about what it looks like. I care about what it does. What's the story here with new colors?
Well, this is again one of these points where you and I differ because I do care. I think a darker looking MacBook is a better looking MacBook. But we can still be friends.
I try not
So
to
we
look
have a new.
down on people who paid extra for that black MacBook years ago because I was one of them, and I'll admit that was my one weakness, moment of
So
weakness.
so the new color. Funny that you bring up the old black MacBook because the new color is an old color. This is space black for MacBook Pro. And you mentioned having to pay extra. Back in the day, as memory serves, you just had to pay extra for the black variant. It was like buying a custom color for your car. If I'm remembering correctly, listeners, if I'm wrong, because I am thinking off the back of my brain, as it were, then please, leave us a comment, leave us some feedback. But I'm pretty sure that was just a premium color choice. This time around, if you want the space black color, you have to order the higher end processor version of the 14 or any of the 16s. You can get silver across the board, but if you order the two lower spec versions of the 14 without any other configuration options, that's silver or space gray only.
So it's a status symbol.
A little bit, but it's a good looking status symbol. I like the look of the thing, and I've got to admit that's not a reason to drop 3 to 12 grand on a notebook for sure. But it's certainly a choice, and it's a very Apple kind of thing to say. Yeah, we've got this new color, but we're only making it in a few different iterations. Although, to be fair, Microsoft does exactly the same thing with the Surface devices. You've got to be really, if you want certain colors in Surface devices, you've actually got to order certain configurations. So they're not alone. Enjoying the show? That's great. Don't forget to subscribe, which you can do on every podcast platform you've ever heard of. Just search for Vertical Hold or go to our website, verticalhold.com.au, where we've got handy buttons for every single podcast platform. So when I think about Hubbl, I think about telescopes, maybe about them not focusing all that well. Steve, Foxtel's focus on the Australian streaming market has always been a little bit disjointed, a bit like the Hubbl telescope,
Mm.
but they've got their own version of Hubbl now. What's Foxtel Hubbl?
Yeah, look, Foxtel have decided that in their wisdom, Project Magneto, which is what it's been codenamed for some time now, um,
Not a supervillain?
no, missed opportunity.
Shame.
Though, depending on what I'm about to tell you, might actually be a supervillain. The Project Magneto has now officially been launched as of Foxtel's upfronts last week as Hubbl. Now, it's available in two formats. What they're calling the Hubbl Hub. By the way, Hubbl is spelled Hubbl because the current,
They couldn't afford the E.
I think so, and someone else already had it copyrighted. Um, so the Hubbl Hub is, I think, a puck style Apple TV-esque plug-in device to your smart TV or dumb TV. And Hubbl Glass is an actual television with the Hubbl Hub built into it. So it's a television with a sound bar with the Hubbl Hub already inside it. So you can buy just a thing to plug into your television or a whole new television that has all of the glory that is Hubbl built deep inside it.
So tell me about this glory. What's glorious about Hubbl?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Adam and Alex, because the details were scant. While it has been announced by Foxtel, and look, they are certainly keen to be showing people what it is, and they gave us a nice picture of what the Hubbl Hub and Hubbl Glass will look like, they're not showing anyone yet. And they're not really telling anyone, except for, look, if I'm going to be generous, some great marketing speak. So to just lift off their press release, the Hubbl experience is delivered via a world-leading entertainment operating systems, brackets, OS, which will be available on two different devices, giving consumers access to a universe of content whilst unifying your subscriptions. Now, last year, Patrick Delaney, who's the CEO of Foxtel Media, the big group that runs all of Foxtel's bits, spoke about this reunification, the re-centralization of access to your subscriptions, particularly. And we already see that bit on Fetch as they are building, their partnership connection, so you can log on to Fetch and then log into your Amazon Prime, so your Prime Video account or your Netflix account, and it searches across all of them, and here we go. Ostensibly, that's what Hubbl is going to be. It is another one-stop shop where you can sign into all of your subscriptions, including your Foxtel/Binge KO subscriptions, and have access to all of that content in the one place, searchable through all of the one situation. And from Foxtel's point of view, of course, their content, Foxtel or Binge and KO, will be absolutely front and center.
So to clarify, Hubbl is not a service. It's not like a rival to
Correct.
Binge or KO or Foxtel now. It's a platform, a box through which to watch all these things. And
Yes.
they go on
Or a
about how
TV.
there's nothing like it in the market, according to their press releases, except for maybe the Apple TV and the Google Chromecast and
Well,
the Fire TV and maybe what the Android TVs do
Fetch.
and Fetch.
And the
But apart
NVIDIA
from them,
Shield and
yes, yeah. Apart from
billion other
all
little
of those
Android
other
boxes.
things that have all tried to solve the exact same problem, this is unique, isn't
I hear your cynicism,
it? Good, because it was up pretty loud.
and it is a difficult one to dissuade you of, in part because they haven't really given us a whole bunch of details and they're not ready to show it to the media yet. I am on the list, I've been told. I will get the invite down to Foxtel HQ to come and see and touch and feel and use it and make sure that it does everything that they say that it does. But for right now,
Stroke the Hubbl malt.
yeah, that's
Stroke
right.
it.
And mate, let me tell you, the pictures that you'll get taken of Hubbl and Mulk together will be amazing. I think the positioning within the market, really, Adam, is that there is no other television device that ostensibly comes pre-built with Foxtel Binge KO content front and center. Yes, your Google TVs and your Samsung TVs have all of the apps, as will Hubbl. There is no question. But their preposition is really that it's effectively, and these are my words, a slimmed down IQ crossbred with like an Apple TV and built into a physical form factored TV.
So I might be getting a little bit
Mhm.
old and I might be forgetting, but I seem to recall going to a media event hosted by
Mhm.
Foxtel at which they launched a revolutionary new device that would plug into my TV that would offer me access to all of Foxtel and Netflix and other streaming
Yes.
services. It was going to change the business and definitely wasn't going to be a horrifically buggy piece of
Is this the
garbage.
Foxtel Now device?
And I recall this because it's, yeah,
Yes.
that's the one. I recall this because there's one sitting gathering dust underneath my
You too.
TV even now. It hasn't been plugged in for ages
Yeah.
because it was so bad.
It was terrible.
They've done this before.
Look,
Yeah.
they have, though, to their benefit, they're not doing this from scratch. Their sister company, Sky, in the UK, also have a product called, funnily enough, Sky Glass, which is a television that has all of these same smarts built into it and does exactly the same thing. All of your data, all of your subscriptions in the one place, access it, searchable, and then provided you're signed in, the access to get to all of them so that when you go, I want to watch something with Daniel Craig, and it says, here's all of the things that have Daniel Craig in it on all of the places that you've got a sub, fill your boots.
One of the things I was interested in is that I think it's Optus have an Optus Hub, Optus Box, some kind of service
Mhm.
that you can sort of aggregate your subscriptions through.
That's
Is Fox
subscriptions management, though, Adam.
Yeah, but
That's
that's what I
not
wanna
hardware.
know is Foxtel Hubbl aiming to be that as well? Is it gonna sort of aggregate the billing and the subscription and do any of that back end stuff? Or is it up to me to have all of those accounts and then it will just bring them together?
As best we know, no. It will be you
Okay.
have to have all of your separate subscriptions managed by yourself. If you wanted, for example, you could jump into Prime Video and subscribe to a whole bunch of services within your Prime Video account. I don't recommend doing it, but you can
Yeah.
do that. It's kind of that, but it's not. You do have to have your own subscriptions lined up, and then log into each of them individually, and off we go. If I may, please, just to read from the press release to assuage any further fears that you might have. Hubbl is the next quantum leap in entertainment technology and is the solution to a complex Australian streaming landscape caused by the fabulous explosion of choice in streaming services available to Australians. Hubbl,
Which Foxtel was so excited about when it happened.
oh, please, there's more. Hubbl is like nothing in the market. It is TV and streaming made easy, seamlessly integrating world-leading technology with a purpose-built design and unrivaled app integration that sets it well ahead of the curve.
So I think they might be onto something here. They might be 100% right
Mm.
because things that happen on the quantum scale are imperceptible to the human eye.
Mm.
A quantum leap is incredibly tiny, and people get this wrong all the time. But I'm being
You really
pedantic.
are.
What I what interested me was this basis in Sky Glass,
Yes.
the TV that they sell in the UK. Obviously, you can't buy those here, so I went and looked up some reputable review sites to see what UK tech journalists thought of this
Yes.
thing. And apparently, like the TV itself is okay. The integrated soundbar is apparently very
Yes.
good. That's pleasing.
Yes.
However, in the UK, apart from what you pay for the TV, which you either buy outright or you do it on,
Yeah, month to month.
24 months or whatever, and apart from obviously what you're paying for Sky, which in the UK basically builds itself on Premier League and then other
Yep.
stuff, which it doesn't entirely have here.
Mm.
Sky Glass in the UK, according to the reviews I was reading, charges extra, Adam, you'll love this, for HDR and Dolby Atmos.
Mm.
Oof,
£5 extra a month.
£5
Do
a
we want
month.
to pay more for features in the TV
Yeah.
we're buying?
That just makes my point that I was going to say, why the hell would you want a TV made by Foxtel? It's like buying a TV made by Apple and they put glue on all the HDMI ports or don't even have any, because why would you ever want to watch anything else? Like buying an Apple car that only drives you to and from the Apple store.
Oh,
so you
no.
can buy
We'll
more
sell you a
Apple
car with
things.
3 wheels, but if you want the 4th, you can pay £5 a month extra.
Yes.
Look,
Why would anybody want Foxtel to control the television?
yeah, we don't know that will be the model that they will follow in Australia. I would say,
God, I hope not.
I would say very hopefully that would be a bad idea if they opted to do that.
Hmm.
Look, it's very.
They are.
I was just gonna say, in the UK, it's very much a fashion accessory. It literally comes. The Sky Glass literally comes in 5 different colors, including green and a muted pink, as well as black and white and something else.
I like that
Oh,
idea. I've got to
mate,
say, I
it's
think
the Appleification of
having
television,
difference in
right?
TVs is not a bad
Yeah,
idea.
it's not the
Um,
worst idea,
yeah,
but the
But if
notion
you
that
care
they
about
can.
picture quality,
Well,
yeah.
we're
sorry, keep
yet
going.
to see. I mean, clearly what they're starting with and where they've landed is that they've made some clear moves around wanting to make sure that it's got the latest stuff in it as far as screens and like physical screens in the Hubbl Glass. And I'd expect that they'll be working very hard on that. Again, in the UK, it's available in 3 sizes: 43-inch, 55, and 65-inch. I would expect that will be almost amazingly the same sizes that'll be available here in Australia. Though, given that it's not due for release to market until at best Q3, probably Q4 2024, you'd hope there's a 75-incher in it. Like, you'd have to expect that there's the next big thing, or whatever the iteration above 65 is that's accessible or acceptable, to deliver to that. Now, from Foxtel's point of view, it's not solely an IPTV play, though it is largely. That's how you'll be accessing all of your subscriptions and the catch-ups and things. I do believe it does have an antenna socket in it, so you can still plug in and get your terrestrial antenna 7, 9, 10, ABC, SBS, should you choose. But it's not mandatory. Like, you won't have to plug it in to get, air quotes, the best out of Hubbl. That said, everything that I've just said largely is unknown and hearsay, because until we physically see, touch, feel it, and know what's going on, Hubbl is a great idea that is wedging itself into an already condensed and very full market, and will have to deliver some pretty serious value prop ahead of the marketing guff that I've shared in this conversation already. Because frankly, other than paying it off month to month and getting a binge KO Foxtel subscription bundled all together and getting $1 bill in that regard, if I want a new TV, I'm going down to, my local electronics retailers after doing some research or listening to an excellent tech podcast that says go and buy this smart TV.
And go and
And in
buy the
fact, what we
TV
would
that's
tell
the
you,
best picture quality.
thank you,
Right?
Yes,
Mr.
exactly.
Yeah,
Anyone who cares about picture quality should run screaming from this.
Well,
Like, it's
we
first thing, go
no,
OLED or
we
go
don't.
home.
we
To be
Right?
don't
Adam,
know
Simple
the
I
as
think
that.
specs
that's
on the
unfair.
screens yet. So I
Yeah,
appreciate your
I will
concern.
bet money. I will bet Elon's pissed away $20 billion that this doesn't offer the best television picture quality in the market because it's aimed at people who don't care about things like that. The fact that it comes in
Oh,
5 colors
see,
tells me everything
no,
I need to know.
the
there's a
thing,
challenge.
Adam, I'll disagree with
Mm,
you. You're shocked, I know. I'll disagree with you. We don't know, and I think it's fair to say we don't know. Therefore, they could partner up with an LG, with a
yeah,
Samsung,
yeah.
with a maker of good quality TVs. They could bring something to market that might be best of breed. I think the sensible vertical hold advice, though, is go for the TV with the best picture
Mm,
quality. Do not go for this kind of integrated play because what we know about smart TV is most people buy a TV, they're going to have it for as long as they possibly
yep.
can. But within that time frame, at some point, the TV manufacturer is going to stop supporting those smart TV apps because there's a new processor,
Yeah.
there's a new app they don't get the licensing for. The smartest thing to do is buy the best panel and then plug
All your
in
things.
a different dongle. Plug in an Apple
Yeah,
TV,
Yep.
plug in a something
exactly.
else. What gives me pause for thought here is a statement on Hubbl that Foxtel has
Yep.
made. A world-class TV, okay, that's marketing hype, with Hubbl and a high-quality built-in soundbar, fine, okay, maybe Sky Glass has that. That only requires an internet connection and a power cord, no other
Mm.
wires. That suggests to me this thing does not have a lot of inputs, which is not great for those of us who like plugging in games
Sure.
consoles or the
And
like.
again, we don't know. Like you would
Mm,
expect
fair.
on any half decent smart TV, there's at least 4 HDMI, if not more, sockets in it. As I said, expecting there to be an antenna socket in the same way, but certainly out of the box, the Foxtel expectation is you plug in power and connect it to your internet, whether it's cabled or Wi-Fi, and off you go. I want to disagree with you as well, Adam. If I recall correctly, which is in a bit of an alcohol fuel phase, haze from Thursday night. Patrick Delaney, in presenting and announcing Hubbl, did say they have, and I apologize if I'm misquoting him, but my recollection was that they have rebuilt it from the ground up. I don't know if they mean just the actual Hubbl hub, the puck device, or whether they mean the whole glass television situation, and they may have. We do know that there's some cost benefit in that, they've got a manufacturer who's literally churning them out for Sky in the UK. And to send it down this line versus send it down this line to get a different badge on it isn't going to be that great a problem in the grand scheme of things. I would absolutely hope if you're coming to market in late 24, early 25, I agree, Adam, it has to have a really great screen in it. If you're going to buy the Hubbl Glass,
Mm.
it has to have a really great screen in it for it to be competitive. And they need to do that in a way that doesn't make it cost, frankly, more than $2,500. If it's more than that, cooked for the
Yeah, you can
65
take
inch
2 grand down to JB Hi-Fi or somewhere like that
and walk
and get
away with a
yourself a
Sony or
very
Samsung for that.
nice OLED.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
a very
Mm.
nice OLED.
So
It's either gotta be a $500 television, or it's gotta be, and then you get what you pay for,
yes.
or it's gotta be up with the best you can buy. As you say, if you go down to your local bulk discount with cash in hand and say, "What can you do for me?"
Now the other benefit, again, I'm supposing because they don't make any mention of it in the marketing release, and it certainly wasn't discussed, is that this is a non-recording device like an Apple TV. So if you want to watch the thing that you missed, you are at the mercy of, God help us all, the catch-up services. Particularly when I'm talking about that, I mean your free-to-air catch-up services, because subscriptions are by their very nature catch-ups in that regard, right?
Mm.
So I don't know if you guys have used 7 Plus, 9 Now, 10 Play in the last, let's call it a year.
I'm not currently clawing my
On and
eyes out,
off.
so let's go
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Yeah.
no, the
no.
scars have just healed on my face. They're not amazing, but again, all of them have made big
Mm.
promises about how they're going to be amping up their streaming catch up products over the next 12 months anyway. So who knows? But yeah, it's an interesting piece because I think what it does, and remembering that Foxtel being a bit owned by Telstra, and Telstra now are majority owners, I think, of Fetch. Um,
Fetch, yep.
they've got their feet in both camps. And just quickly, you can make a decision about whether or not this stays in the podcast. I have ventured into the Fetch user discussion group, And from the minute that they learnt that Telstra bought into the Fetch, my goodness gracious, the tinfoil hats that came out about what that's going to look like and what that means, and then questions of will Binge and KO ever come? Of course, Binge and KO apps are coming to the Fetch platform. That's mandatory, particularly because Telstra are now starting to promote the Fetch product as their primary instead of the Telstra TV. And they'll want to get Binge and KO onto there because they're really the missing pieces on Fetch's subscription, kind of interface stuff.
A return to a good
Hey,
working
look,
UI
well,
wouldn't hurt.
there's some. They have given a
It
commitment.
did upset a lot of
I'm a,
people.
I
Yeah,
give
yeah,
context to this. I'm a
yes,
long-time Fetch user. I quite
same.
like or liked the platform. I've got to say what they've done with their modern UI
They've made a
is
few things
not good.
far more inaccessible
Really
than they
not
should
good.
be.
Yes.
Much harder, much less simple sit back and veg
Yes.
and flow in the way that it used to be. Not great, needs a
Oh,
lot of work, and my
frankly,
goodness, I hope Hubbl
yeah,
can
yeah.
do it a
Frankly,
bit
one
better
button
than
push and I
that.
should be able to access my recordings on the Fetch, and you can't anymore. I don't. Well,
Mm.
more than two, and it's a trauma. But to just
Mess with the TV watcher's
yeah,
muscle
yeah,
memory
and
and
look,
you're in
to
trouble.
Fetch's great credit, and this is not a Fetch conversation. To Fetch's great credit, they have made the commitment
Mm.
that they are listening to the feedback from their user base, and they are tidying some of that up in current and future releases. That's positive. Some of it can't come quick enough. But it's an interesting play now with Telstra
Mm.
being able to say, buy a Fetch box from us, or one would assume, get a Hubbl Hub or even Hubbl Glass from us. And we don't know how Foxtel are going to be selling it either. Will it be just direct from Foxtel? Will it be go down to JB Hi-Fi, The Good Guys, whoever, and buy your Hubbl Glass, Hubbl Hub? Or will it be bundled through Telstra or any other um, telco in that? Who knows, mate? I mean, obviously it's wide open to them. And to be able to do it month to month, bundle it onto your Binge or your Foxtel bill or your KO bill makes a lot of sense. As you alluded to though before, Adam, it really does come down to price, which again, we don't know.
Yeah. See, I can't see them making much of inroads into the Australian television market if it's not sitting next to the other televisions down at your bulk
Oh, it's a
electrical
long
retailer.
play.
I think that's where people go
Yeah,
when they want to buy a new television. They're not going to buy, even if you don't care that much about picture quality, someone is not going to buy a television sight
agreed.
unseen over the web and get
Yeah,
it delivered when they know they can walk in and look at a wall of television
yeah, but
somewhere
we
and
know the
go, I
play,
want
right?
that
We
one.
know. Remember when Foxtel got serious about launching the IQ? There were all these pop-ups that were in your local shopping center where you would walk
Mm.
past big banks of screens and someone trying to accost you and get you to come and look at Foxtel, and they would
Yeah.
show you what the great things the IQ could do. My guess is if Foxtel is the only place to get it and not from your, grey box store retailer, it'll be lots of that. It'll be come and see it in the flesh, and and
That
and
makes
look,
sense.
that will
Yeah.
present, I think,
Mm.
really well and probably convince a whole bunch of people to sign up in that regard. But again, we don't know. I almost wish, and I appreciate why Foxtel and Delaney released the information about Hubbl as little as it is. It literally feels like the launch of the product is as far away as the telescope it's named after. Like, it just feels so far in the distance, it's not funny. I almost would have said, Project Magneto is now called this, and come along next year and we'll have them everywhere and you can come and touch and feel and see them. Like this drip feeding of partial information and it's not ready to show people stuff, but we need to launch it. It just reeks of really unfortunate delays, doesn't it?
Or the feel of the need to build hype, and I think it's a hard market to build hype in. What we do know is, going back to the
Mm,
UK market where they have launched Sky Glass, is they're doing outright sales, but they're also doing monthly
mm.
added onto your bill kind of stuff. But if you do that, at least based on what they've done in the UK, they are subsidizing it. It's actually slightly
But a
cheaper,
bit.
not a whole lot cheaper. It ends up being about 10, £15 over the life of the contract, but a bit.
No,
Have they given any indication that that's something they consider? Right, so we just don't know, because that I would have thought would be the way to do it. Replace your current telly with a Hubbl telly through Foxtel, and
and this
we'll
is
knock
this is the real
$100 off
problem.
the price.
Yeah, yeah,
You'd
and
probably
this is
have
the
some
real
people
problem
lining up for
is
that.
that by saying the thing that was called something else is now called Hubbl, and here's a little bit of information about it, you're not going to keep that. It's not a big enough thing that you're going to keep that boiling along until launch, which, look, could be Q2, Q3, Q4, 2024, right? It's definitely not going to be Q1. Otherwise, they'd be shouting about it and they'd be showing us product. So based on that, what's like the media cycle talking about that? After this, it's going to fade away, and then it might pop up with another bit of information. It had better be good. It'll fade away. Or they say nothing until, 6 to 8 weeks out from launch, where we just get overloaded with Hubbl information, and here's the thing, and come and touch and see and feel it and all of the stuff. And then we'll start talking about it again.
Here's our B-list Hollywood celebrity to spruik
Mate,
it,
don't
and
don't discount that. And just to throw into the mix, friends,
Mm.
if you remember, and this was, I thought, a really interesting omission from Foxtel's upfront, and I've talked about this already on the TV Black Box podcast. The 3 letters H, B, and O were not mentioned in that order at all at their upfront event.
That's where I was going to
Because
go next. You can't talk about Foxtel
well,
without talking about
it's
HBO.
their
What's going on?
international premium drama play, and they do have some content coming in under that agreement through 24. But we know that that agreement ends at the end of 24. And if we are to believe what has been alluded to by Mr. Big Max man out of the States, they have an aggressive rollout plan that includes Australia in 2025. Now, I would have thought that if Foxtel re-sign, if they can, with what are they, Warner Brothers Discovery now, that Max will not come to Australia. That's what Binge is, right? Binge is where I get all my HBO content. If you deliver
Mm.
me a separate product that would be priced as competitively, one, the market is just saturated. We do not need another thing. However, Max comes in with a voluminous premium drama library that, of course, you would want to go to. And then, of course, it throws some big question marks over Binge, who they are, as in Foxtel, are furiously trying to show have a uniquely Australian voiced content library by commissioning a whole bunch of great content for it. And that's amazing. And they are market leaders in that space because of it. And I just want to point out, Binge are the group that are responsible for commissioning this, not Foxtel. All of their new commissions are Binge first. So that straight away says it will be available to you on Foxtel, naturally, all of the things. But when it used to be, remember that Foxtel is commissioning blah, blah, blah for our, now it's Binge has commissioned. Binge has commissioned its first Australian feature film based on the Paul Kelly song, How to Make Gravy. Right? So that's where they're headed in that regard. Is this a sign that they don't want to, can't, won't afford the HBO deal, or they're hedging their bets, or furiously in the background, they're trying to scrape the dollars together so that they can give HBO the extra zero so they don't launch in Australia separate from Foxtel? Who knows?
Isn't this sort of the Netflix play of about 7 years ago or so, where suddenly all the US companies that have been licensing stuff to them started to go, yeah, maybe not, and Netflix went nuts
Well, they
commissioning
needed to bolster their
everything?
library, didn't they? And they were aggressively rolling out.
Mm. Well, but
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's the same play is my point. It's the same kind of thing. It's let's have stuff which is just ours. And all credit to them. I
yes,
love the idea that they're
please.
commissioning lots of Australian creators to create lots of local content. That is wonderful stuff. I'm not
No, no, I
demeaning
understand.
that in any way,
It's
shape, or form. But I would have said that leans more towards the we
Oh,
don't
look,
think we're getting
we know that it
HBO
takes
back.
so long to make this stuff that if they sat on their thumbs and didn't do anything, they'd be in
Mm.
real trouble in 12 months' time. So I think to aggressively come out and do it and then all of it go, and hooray, we continue our relationship with HBO, excellent. Um, if they can't continue their relationship with HBO, they're still in a really strong position because look at all this great Australian content that, if we remember hard, the Australian government are meant to be bringing in legislation next year that states that every subscription service has to have X amount of its bottom line drilled into making Australian content for their platforms. How have Max done that? They haven't at all. And if they land into this universe, into Australia, and that legislation has just come to pass, they're not going to be exempt. They'll have to launch with Australian content.
But isn't this so? If they launched
Geez,
as an
we're all over the
Australian
place in this conversation,
service,
aren't we? Sorry.
yeah. Well, it's fine. It's fine. We're meant to go behind the tech news here at Vertical Hold. This is exactly what we're doing. Isn't this the problem that you've sort of got, to draw a rough analogy, with like getting GST out of international merchants?
Yep.
HBO is a US company. If they just say, look, Australians can now access the service, but you're paying us in US dollars,
Don't
and
start
there
me
are
on
subscription
that.
services you can
I
get
signed
right
up
now
for
that
One
do this.
Password for a subscription, and I had to pay GST on top of US dollars. Bullshit, I do.
I feel your
You've set
pain,
him off.
Steve,
Angry. I
but
was
You've pushed
angry
his
when I saw that
buttons.
invoice.
the thing is, they're able to get them to agree to it. There are a lot of streaming services out there which do not geo-block but will accept
Yep.
their local currency. I can't see how the Australian government can enforce a local content standard on, an India-based streaming service that only delivers content in Hindi, or a US-based sports streaming. I mean, I
Yep.
can get NFL Game Pass here. Are they suggesting that suddenly half the games have to be
This is
filmed
the
in
problem
Marrickville?
for every subscription streaming service that isn't Stan. Like, for reals. Like, Prime Video, Netflix, Max, we assume, Disney Plus, all of the places. How It's only because they have trading empires in
Does Prime
Australia.
Video
If
just
they
cover it with
totally pulled
neighbours?
their businesses, as in functional brick and mortar, out of Australia and just basically said, we are offering the service in Australia, but we have no platform here. And sure, we'll go back to charging you US dollars like Netflix did originally when they first launched in Australia. Mate,
Hmm.
I would have said that the Australian government has no play on them. It's only when they are in Australia collecting GST and paying GST that it's going to cause them issues. And we know that they've got their Irish left twists with a hippopotamus that allow them to say, oh, but we made a loss. I just can't. There's so much weirdness about all of that. And to boot, we're a year into Netflix now having an ad included platform. And they sent a press release out just today skiding about how many millions of people have got subscribed. Great. Well done, friends. Like, you're just making more money. That's awesome. In an Australian context, I think that what we really are staring down is Foxtel introducing another smart TV into an already clenched tightly market. And we know nothing about it, and it needs to have a real serious point of difference. And I'm not convinced yet, because I haven't seen it and touched it, that having Hubbl built into that television is going to be worth the money.
Now, Steve, now is your chance to plug whatever you want to plug: podcasts, websites, books you've written, movies you've seen, music that people should be listening to.
Jeepers, tvblackbox.com.au is the place where you want to go and read all about it. It's also where we push out the TV Black Box podcast, but of course you can get that alongside Vertical Hold, where you get your high quality podcasts, while The Real Housewives of Sydney Season 2 is airing on Binge. My friend Nick McLaughlin and I are rolling out the Unreal Housewives podcast with Nick and Mulk, where we recap and analyze to an infinite point everything that goes on in every episode. It's meant to go for about 40 minutes. Not one episode has come in under an hour 20. So I think you can work out where we've landed, but it's so much fun. It is so delicious. I love the Southern Hemisphere iterations of the Real Housewives franchise. And that's why we're doing it. So the Unreal Housewives podcast with Nick and Mulk, the TV Black Box podcast, tvblackbox.com.au. And if you want to find me, I'm over on B-Sky, and I've got some invite codes if you want to get in and you're a good person.
And you've now got me wondering whether or not we should rebrand Vertical Hold as The Real House Husbands of... except we're across two cities. Doesn't fit the brand. Drat.
I think
Well,
that's
I
the
guess we'll
least
just
of
have
the
to...
reasons why we should.
This sounds like an off-air meeting that should have happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are other problems.
Yeah.
There are other issues. So I guess we'll keep making Vertical Hold. And for as long as we are, you can catch us at the Vertical Hold webpage on Facebook, Instagram. You can look up Adam or I across Mastodon, Blue Sky, Threads, and that thing that used to be called Twitter, I guess.
Cooked, mate.
I'm sometimes
Cooked.
there. I think we're sometimes there.
And thanks everyone for dropping by, and drop us a line. Let us know what you think about Foxtel's latest efforts. Let us know what you think about the new Max and the M3
Tasty.
chips, and just let us know what you think in general.